Hey guys, you know who this is. It's Mr. Morrow again with another edition of Morrow Teaches Online. Today is the next lesson on trigonometry. So we are finding the measure of a missing angle or side. But before we do that, let's check some homework. Oops. So remember, you can always pause it. And again, if you have a question, please ask your teacher. And if you think there's a mistake, definitely let us know. So, let's check this out. So remember, sometimes it's talking about angle X, sometimes it's talking about angle Z. When they switch up the angle on you, you need to change up the opposite and adjacent sides. So like for angle X, again, that's the hypotenuse. X is looking at 45, so then that's the opposite side, and this would be the adjacent. So sine is O over H, so 45 over 60. And then for cosine, A over H, and so on. But then when it asks, come on, when it asks for angle Z, make sure that now you switch it up. While that is still the H, now this is the O, that's the A. So you have to switch it. Okay, check your answers. Hopefully you did well. Okay, again, pause the screen if you want to see it. And we'll see what happens. Now, notice for find x, when here's angle x, so again, that's the H, it's looking at 9, that's the A. And if it said find x, find the angle, you could have chosen any of them. Now, I want you to notice this. You never, ever, ever write the -1, ever. You don't write the -1 part. You would just write it like the sine of x equals. Now, the thing is, it didn't matter which one you chose, because since they gave you all three angles, all three sides, you could have picked the sine and then done second sine, type that in, or you could have done the cosine, second cosine that, or second tangent that. You notice that they all come out to the same answer, and they should, because we're talking about the same angle. So it didn't matter which one of those three you picked. Okay, for this, remember, if they give you the angle, you're pressing regular sine, regular cosine, regular tangent. If you're finding an angle, you're going to press second sine, second cosine, second tangent. Okay? And then for the last part, you can see my beautiful handwriting. Ew. Okay? And there are the steps to solving. And for number 9, you can see when you check for an extraneous solution, it doesn't actually work. So that's a problem. Just saying. Yeah, so if you notice about number 9, I want to show you what this looks like as a graph and why there is no solution, even though you're like, but I thought square root of -2 does equal the square root of -2. And I forgot to mention that in the last homework. One of them did show an answer when it should have been no solution. And I believe that was in the extraneous solutions lesson. So I want to show you this. If you graph this and you graph this, remember, we're looking for where do they intersect. So if you go to y equals, come on, and of course you're not going to work, square root of 3x plus 4. And then if you graph the other one, square root of x, you should see them intersect if they truly are. But when you look at it, there's the first one. There's the second one. Do you see them intersect? No. Now they would intersect probably at -2, but -2 doesn't exist. Look, when you go to the table, second table, -2 does not exist. Okay, so there it is, -2, error, error. So even though it comes out, so if it comes out to a square root of a negative number, then there's no solution. I don't care that the left equals the right. And again, I forgot to mention that in a different homework. When it came out, if you did the check though, it wouldn't have worked. So if you ever get square root of -2 equals the square root of -2, even though they equal each other, it doesn't actually work because you can't square root a negative. Okay, so the answer is no solution. Okay, so this lesson, now that we know the basics, let's do the real stuff now. Now, usually they only give you two sides. Now, people do this differently. Now, we're talking about trigonometry, so I'm going to write so, and again, the stylus has not been great. SOHCAHTOA. I know, have you had fun saying it? I have. So I still like to label all the sides. Some people don't label all the sides. I always label all the sides. I think it's the best way. So this is the angle we're talking about because they're talking about angle, the x degrees. So across from the right angle is the H. X is looking at the O, and the remaining side is the A. Now, this is what real trigonometry is they give you two numbers, and you're forced to pick one of them. So do you see how O has no number next to it? So we don't care about the opposite. So which one of those three trigonometric functions uses an A and an H? So do you see how it uses an A and an H? So what is that? What does the C stand for? It stands for cosine. So then that tells you we're using cosine. So here's how you set up. You write cosine, and then whatever letter we're using for the angle. So cosine of x equals, and now A over H, 12 over 17. So remember, to find an angle, first thing is when you go to mode, you got to make sure you're always in degrees. We are in degrees, so we're ready to go. If you're finding an angle, you're pressing second cosine and then type in the fraction. And when you do that, you get 45 degrees because normally we round to the nearest whole number. So x is 45 degrees. And there's your angle. Okay, we're talking about this angle. H across from the x is the opposite. And over here is the A. We're not talking about the H. So what uses an O and an A? An O and an A. Tangent. So then that tells me we're using the tangent. So tangent of x, because that's the angle we're talking about, is equal to O over A. Don't put the smaller number on top. Do it in the order it tells you to do. O is 8. A is 3. So now we go to the calculator. Second tangent. Whoa, what am I doing? Second tangent 8 over 3. And you get 69, and it doesn't round up because that's a 4 afterwards. So x is 69 degrees. Okay? So that's the key, is that now you're only really given two sides. So let's label this. Across from the right angle is H. What is x looking at? The O. And there's the A. Well, we're not talking about the A because there's no information given about the A. So what uses an O and an H? So it's sine. Sine of x is opposite over hypotenuse. So you go to second, because we're finding an angle, second sine, 4 over 14. And you get 16.6, so that does round up. So this becomes 17 degrees. Okay, here we go. Now, it doesn't give you an x, but if you read the question, it says find the measure of angle B. So then there's angle B. I like to draw the curve. What's across from the right angle is your hypotenuse. B is looking at this empty side, which is the opposite, and whatever is next to it is the A. So clearly we're not talking about the opposite because there's nothing given. What uses an A and an H? Cosine. So cosine of B, and some people actually pronounce that as cos B, which is weird, equals A over H. So now we go to the calculator. You type in second cosine 3 over 12. And you get 75.5, which does round up to 76 degrees. Come on. All right. So let's keep this going. We're still finding angles. Angle, again, label. I like to label all the sides. Some teachers do it differently. They just label the sides that are given. I just think when you get into the rhythm, it just works better. H, X is looking at this side is the O. Remember, the opposite side will never touch the angle. And then this is the A. Well, they don't give me anything about the O. So what uses an A and an H? Again, so ka toa. So A and H is cosine. Cosine of X is equal to A over H, 12 over 18. Go to the calculator. Second cosine, 12 over 18. And we get 48.1, which is just 48. So 48 degrees. Again, that's why this is so cool, is because You used to have to use a protractor to find out what the angle is, and now trigonometry, you can just do it using math instead of needing like a mathematical tool. So here we go. So we're going to label the sides. Again, H, O, A. H has no information. We use an O and an A. What uses that? Tangent. So tangent of x is equal to 7 over 11. So we go to the calculator. Second, tangent 711. How fun. 32.4, that stays 32. 32 degrees. And then find angle x. Again, across from the right angle H, across from the x, O, and A. What do they give us? An O and an H. What uses O and H? So sine of x. Also, please don't be the kid that writes this. Again, this is an acronym. Don't ever write so H. Sine x is equal to O over H, 5.8 over 8. So we do second sine 5.8 divided by 8, 46.4. So you can see finding the angle is not hard at all. Okay? Now, where it gets a little bit trickier, we're going to warm you up right now, and then you'll see why we're doing this, is when we find the side, it's going to take a little bit more effort. So, for 8, 9, and 10, to solve for x, we got to get x alone. So what else is on the side of x? 9. Yes, we're going to do the butterfly. Yes, cross multiply. This is a butterfly. Now, here we go. You get x equals, because x times 1 is just x. 9 sine 40. Guess what you write? 9 sine 40. Don't ever write this. Tell me why you shouldn't write sine 40 times 9. Because now it looks like it says sine 409. So don't do that. Just put the number out in front as if it was like a coefficient. So you see how it says 9 sine 40. So all you have to do is literally just type exactly what it says. 9 sine 40. And not even second sine because they give you the angle. So 9 sine 40. And you're going to write that 5.78. Now, it says round to the nearest 10th. So that 7 is in the 10th spot. So that 8 tells us to round up. So x is 5.8. Why are you erasing? X is 5.8. The next one, get x alone. Again, you're just going to cross multiply. X equals 14 cosine 72. Again, you're just taking that 14 and just sticking it out in front. That's all you're doing. So here we go. 14 cosine 72. 4.32, and that 2 doesn't do anything. So x equals 4.32. Now the next one is where it gets a little trickier. Look where the x is now. It's in the denominator. So you still cross multiply, but when you do that, you get x tan 15 is equal to 1 times 20 is 20. Is x alone yet? No. What's next to the x? Tan 15. So how do you get rid of tan 15? If you're multiplying by tan 15, we're going to have to divide by tan 15. So do you see how these ones take an extra step? So x equals 20 divided by tan 15. So that's always going to happen when the x is in the denominator. So you're just going to type it exactly as you see it. So here we go. This one is 20 divided by tan 15. And again, it's regular tan. 74.64, so that's just going to stay 74.6. And there's your answer. Okay, so now notice what we're finding. We're not finding they give us the angle now. But now we're trying to find a missing side. So that's why trigonometry is so cool. Is because you can find angles and sides with it. So, angle 35. I'm still going to draw the curve so you're going to label it like we always have. Again, across from the right angle is always your hypotenuse. What's 35 looking at? The O, and the remaining side is the A. Now, A gives us no information. So we're using an O and an H. Again, let's always write this. So, ka, toa It's used for everything in trigonometry. So, the difference between earlier in the lesson and now they give us the angle. So instead of saying sine of x, they give us what the sine is. Sine of 35. The angle will always go next to the trigonometric function. So if they give us the angle, you put it next to it. So sine of 35 equals O, what's the O? X over what's the H? 10. Because again, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Now that's why we just did the last three questions. How do we solve for x? Well, we're going to cross multiply. So you get x equals, where does the 10 go? Out in front. So 10 sine of 35. And now we're going to type it in our calculators. So again, 10 sine of 35. 5.73. So it's going to stay 5.7. So that's how long that side is. It's 5.7. So that's why this is so cool. Is because now you can figure out missing sides. So here we go. Let's label it. So H O A. Again, don't care about the. We got an O. We got an H. What uses an O and an H? Sine. They give us the angle. So sine of 30 is equal to the O is x, the H is 30. A lot of kids think the x always goes on top. No, we just been putting the x on top because that's the order it tells me to put it in. If the x was the H, the x would go in the denominator. Okay. Also, I wrote this wrong, didn't I? That should say sine of 25. My bad. Okay, cross multiply. You get x equals 30, because again, you're combining this. 30 sine of 25. So we go to the calculator. 30 sine of 25. 12.7. X equals 12.7. Usually we round sides to the nearest tenth and usually angles to the nearest whole number. Okay, what do we got in this case? There's the angle. Cross on the right angle is your H, hypotenuse. 37 is looking at this side. That's your O, and this is your A. They don't tell us anything about the opposite side. What uses an O and an H? I'm sorry, an A and an H. Cosine. Since they give us the angle, we're going to write that. Cosine of 37, A, which is X, over H, which is 16. To get X alone, cross multiply. You get X equals 16 cosine 37. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So 16 cosine 37, 16 cosine 37. You get 12.77. That rounds to 12.8. 12.8. And guys, what I have not been writing, which you're supposed to, but you would never lose points, but you should get in the habit. Write the units, meters, inches, and in this case, we're talking about feet. You really should get in the habit. So, in this case, this one's going to be a little bit more difficult. Just a little bit. So there's the angle. Cross on the right angle is your H. 72 is looking at this side, which is the O, and that's the A. So what, they don't tell us anything about the A. What uses an O and an H? Sine. So sine of 72 is equal to, now a lot of kids think the X always goes on top. It doesn't. Follow the order. It's O over H. O over H. Okay, so this one's going to take 2 steps to solve. So we cross multiply, and you get X sine of 72 is equal to 5.6. Now, is X alone yet? No, we got to get rid of that sine 72. So divide both sides by sine 72. And we get X equals, and we'll type that in, 5.6 divided by sine 72. 5.6 divided by sine 72. And you get 5.88, which rounds to 5.9. And again, since we're talking about meters, let's keep it meters. And there it is. Okay, and this is the last page, so let's do this. Find x. Get out of here. Get out of here. All right, so here's the angle. What's across from the right angle? There it is. That's your h. So always look for the right angle first, because again, whatever's across from it, that's your hypotenuse. Whatever 63 is looking at, that's your opposite, and this is your adjacent. They don't give us anything about the opposite, and again, it never hurts to write SOHCAHTOA. Okay? They give us an A, they give us an H. What uses that? Cosine. So cosine of 63 is equal to, what is it? A over H, 4.5. Okay, cross multiply to get the x alone. X equals 4.5 cosine 63. When you type that in, 4.5 cosine 63, 2.04, but that just rounds to 2.0. I mean, here's the thing. You can just write 2, but technically if they say round to the nearest 10, the last number you write should be in the 10th spot. So I personally would write 2.0 centimeters just because it's asking for the nearest 10th. I mean, would we be strict with that? No. But again, that's what it would be. So, just want to tell you a little story. I actually used trigonometry once to decide if a tree was going to fall on my house. So let's do 17 since that actually describes that one first. So here's the thing. If you're on the ground looking at the top of a tree, obviously you're probably not going to be able to get a measuring tape and measure how tall the tree is, because for me, my tree was an evergreen tree and those things can get ridiculously tall. But the thing is, if you measured how far away you are from the tree, and then you are on the ground, because you need to be on the ground to have the right angle, on your phone, you can, there's an app which shows you what angle you're looking at, okay? And then if you pointed at the top of the tree, it would tell you what angle you're at between you and the ground. So when Hurricane Sandy happened, I wanted to know if the tree was going to hit my house. Now, I couldn't measure how tall the tree was, but I used trigonometry to decide how tall the tree was by finding the missing side, which was the height of the tree. I figured out how far away I was from the tree. I figured out what angle it was, how much of an angle it is from the ground to the top of the tree. And I did trigonometry. And I found out, yes, that tree, if it were to fall, it would hit a little bit of the house. And guess what? It did fall and it took out the chimney. Yeah, that was not good. But at least I knew when it was going to fall, it was going to take out my house. How did that help me prevent it? It didn't. Just saying. So, there's a nice story about how trigonometry can be used in real life. You can figure out the height of anything with just knowing the angle to the top of it and how far away you're standing from it. It's really cool because most tall things you can't measure. All right, so trigonometry would get you to that point. Literally. Ha. All right, so here's the angle. The more you know. Do do do. Just saying. I'm sure you all really cared about that story. Just saying. True story, actually. So here's the angle. Hypotenuse for the across from the right angle. It's staring at that side and adjacent. Don't care about the opposite side. What uses an A and an H? Cosine. Cosine of 63 is equal to A over H. You cross multiply, you get X equals 100 cosine 63. When you type it in, I know you're like, this is getting repetitive. I know. But for the people that watch the full videos, I appreciate it because I spend all this time making it and love it that you actually watch it. But at least you get to hear little stories if you watch the whole video instead of the people that just watch the first 5 minutes and say, I know how it's done. So, and you know who you are. So x equals 45.4. That is what I got, right? Yes. All right. And again, it's meters. So let's make it meters. And the last one of trigonometry. Here we go. So there's the angle. What's across from the right angle? The hypotenuse. What's 55 looking at? The x. And there's the adjacent. They don't give us anything about the h. Here's one we haven't had yet. What uses an O and an A? Yes, tangent. Please don't ever say yes, TOA. No, that's not that's an acronym. So tangent of 55 is equal to O, which is x, over A, which is 10. And when you cross multiply, you get x equals 10 tan 55. And when you type that in, 10 tan 55, 14.28, which rounds to 14.3 kilometers. And there it is, guys. So again, it's always a pleasure. I'm really glad that you could have learned trigonometry from anyone, but you chose me, just like in airlines. Thank you for choosing me as your math teacher, and we hope to see you again real soon. Bye, guys.